With a new image, a new democratic approach, and their public speaking ban lifted, the Nazis plough all their energy into contesting the 1928 election. The Nazi Party machinery has been revamped. Party membership has increased fourfold since 1925. Hitler is busy putting into practice the tactic of looking outwardly respectable while sticking firmly to his secret agenda. Traveling around the country, he gives dynamic speeches that reach out to the unemployed and frustrated working classes, while reassuring the wealthy that he's not an extremist. But there's precious little mention of his real agenda: the Jews.
Hitler tries to project the party as a kind of model of political respectability. He tries to tone down anti-Semitism.
Instead, he targets the rural working classes, where Jew baiting isn't an electoral issue.
There are no Jews in these local rural communities, so really they're more interested in agricultural prices, they're interested in the prices of their goods as they take them to market. They're not really interested in the Jewish question.
And there's another reason for the Nazis to play down their anti-Semitism.
Hitler wants to seek business support as well. Most of Germany's major businesses are still exporting and interchanging with people in other countries who are Jewish.
Hitler's central political thrust isn't racist, but economic. He warns that the country's booming economy is propped up by American money, which, if pulled out, will see Germany collapse.
The phrase that Hitler uses in some of his speeches is that Weimar is dancing on a volcano, and that really all of this prosperity is down to loans, and eventually it will all collapse and Germany will go back into a terrible state of depression again for relying on these American loans.
But when the election results come in May 1928, it's a shock. The Nazis receive just 2.6% of the vote. The Communists, Hitler's main rivals, have gained 4 times more support. Hitler and his party have done worse than they did in the 1924 elections. The new image hasn't worked. It looks like the Nazi party's going nowhere.
They were still an extremist party on the fringe with a minuscule percentage of the vote. But you have to remember that Germany was still enjoying a spell in the economic sunshine.
Nazism was like a snowball. It flourished in cold, dark times, but you subject it to sunlight and it will melt. And if the economy is the sun, that's what will happen to Nazism. It'll only be strong in critical times. It's a party that depends on extreme conditions.
Hitler and his inner circle despair that they will ever gain power. It seems the legitimate route has failed. But an earth-shattering event changes everything. On the 24th of October 1929, the stock market in Wall Street crashes. As Hitler had predicted, American banks call in their loans in a frantic effort to save themselves.
When America ran into trouble, then it pulled in its horns, it stopped buying goods, it stopped loaning money, and every country suffers because they're all tied into this international system.
The Great Depression sees countless thriving businesses plunged into bankruptcy all over the world. In Germany, the effects are devastating. Without their US loans, banks collapse. unemployment shoots up dramatically. In just 8 weeks, it rises from 3% to 26%.
Germany increases its unemployed by 6 million. And when you think that another 3 people are affected by an unemployed person in the house, that meant 24 million Germans were affected by the Wall Street crash.
Virtually no one escapes its effects. People who'd painstakingly built up their savings after the hyperinflation of the early 20s are hit hard.
The middle class were again faced with a renewal of the nightmare that they had seen around about 1923, when the huge inflation beggared them, actually wiped out their savings almost overnight.
Humiliation and misery is compounded by poverty and starvation as parents struggle to feed their children. Chaos returns as the German people increasingly lose confidence in the Weimar Republic.
Germany really is in a terrible state, and you can see that by what happens very quickly. It's the hunger, it's the poverty, it's the real desperation that comes to Germany out of that Wall Street crash that we see the seeds of the turn away from democracy and towards the Nazi Party.
One man had predicted this all along. Suddenly, people are seeing him differently. Adolf Hitler's no longer a radical extremist. He's a prophet.
What he'd said would happen has begun to happen. Who is to blame? Well, at our distance removed, we say, well, it's a matter of international finance. But to the Nazi, international finance was Jewish finance. This is a great plot, as Hitler sees it. We told you what was happening, and now here's the proof positive.
With the German nation in despair, at last Hitler has the real opportunity he's been waiting for. Crucially, many of those who've suffered most as a result of the Great Depression are those who had ignored Hitler and voted against him. Now they are ready to listen to his message. The Nazis are on the rise.